Grab a cup of tea or a glass of wine and tune in for Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy. On Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern, Linda creates sacred space for leading female luminaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. A soulful venue where guests openly share the fears and obstacles they've overcome, wisdom and lessons learned, and the personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic, soulful living.
Welcome to Inspired Conversations. I'm your host, Linda Joy, mindset elevation coach, intentional living guide, and publisher of the beloved Aspire magazine, which is celebrating 17 years of inspiring, empowering, and supporting women to live their best lives. And all these years later, it is still free. So grab your free subscription at subscribe-to-aspire.com. Talking about inspiring content, I am so excited about today's conversation because I don't know about you ladies, but I'm always looking for ways to navigate life transitions, or as I call them, life shifts, cosmic 2x4s, with ease, grace, and playfulness. In today's show, we're going to be covering that and so much more with Pamela Thompson. Pamela has experienced many transitions throughout her life, including living and working on 5 continents, separation and divorce, burnout, finding the love of our life. She is passionate about sharing her insights, stories, and actionable strategies on how to navigate change, lead in uncertain times, and thrive in life and work. And she does that globally through experiential workshops, speaking, and writing. As you'll discover, she is so committed to making a difference. She is an ambassador for Canada of a global social movement called Female Wave of Change, and founder of the national member-based nonprofit Female Wave of Change Canada. And she's the author of the #1 best-selling book, Learning to Dance with Life, a guide for high-achieving women, and her most recent international bestseller, which we'll be talking about today, The Exploits of Minerva, Reflections of a 60-something Woman. Welcome, Pamela.
Thanks so much, Linda. I'm excited to be here today with you.
Well, you and I have known each other for a while. We've played, we've partnered, but I am so excited to have this conversation with you today and learn more about the exploits of Minerva. I just recently turned 60, and so I'm dying to dive into this. So let's talk about what is the context for the book and why you chose it, because I'm always curious when women write books.
That's a great question. The context for the book, Linda, is a women's circle. And it's related to 6 women who've been part of a women's circle for over 20 years and supporting each other through a variety of life transitions. And why I chose it is I originally chose it to write it as fiction. And it was really interesting because when the manuscript reviewer from my publisher reviewed it, she said, this part self-help guide, part memoir. And I'm like, didn't she read the genre? And I was talking to the woman who was my publishing coordinator. And she said, Pam, I think it's creative nonfiction. And I'm like, I didn't know what that was. So I got off the go and I Googled it. And sure enough, it's creative nonfiction. And that means the stories are real and raw. Much of it is very real because what I did is I interviewed friends and friends of friends and created composite characters based on their own experiences navigating various life transitions. And I also integrated some of my own. So Minerva is partly autobiographical and partly an essence who came to me about 25 years ago when I was riding on a bike trail when I lived in Ottawa. And at that time, I pushed her down and said, no, I'm not going to write about you now. And then she resurfaced, I guess, about 3.5 years ago and said, write me. And the other part of why I chose it is I am in a women's circle. I've only been in it for about 4 years. So I understand what women's circles are a bit about and how they can be so transformative and so supportive for women. And so that part of it is true, but I've enhanced the truth, if you will, from 4 to 20 years. And it's set in Vancouver where I used to live, but I don't live there anymore. So there's bits of the story that are very based on my life experience, but have been stretched a little bit, if you know what I'm saying.
Oh, I love this. And I love that it's like your soul knew this book was meant to be born, but at the time you first had the vision, it knew it wasn't the right time. So what makes you know, because your heart knew that this is the right time? Do you think it's because of the age you're at now and the life experiences that you've experienced since the first inkling to write this?
I think that's part of it. I think the age and life changes, because when it first came to me, I hadn't burnt out. And my first book, Learning to Dance with Life, that you shared at the intro, that came out of me burning out and taking some time off. And during that time off, the 7 keys to what I call creative living came to me. And so part of it was that. And part of it was, I think, as well, people who came in touch with me about 4 years ago. I met a woman, and she attended a one-day retreat that I had related to using my Art of Change framework to navigate life transitions. And she had recently retired and moved with her husband from the east coast of Canada to Vancouver Island, where I live now. And so she was undergoing a number of transitions. Within the first 6 months, not only retirement, moving from one place to another, but within the first 6 months of retiring and moving, her husband died of metastases of the original site for the cancer. And this was the love of her life. They'd been together since they were 20, married at 22. And she was like, she really felt like, she really noticed the void. And she said, Pam, no one writes about this. No one asks me what it's like to be a widow. And she said, and we need to talk about this. We need to share this as women. And that really made an incredible impression on me, Linda. And I thought, wow. So it ended up, I said to her later on, I said, would you be willing to be interviewed and share your story about what it was like? She was about 3, at that point, her husband had passed about 3 years before. And she said, sure. So she was able to clearly articulate the phases she went through in terms of her grief and dealing with that transition. And then I said to her, do you have other friends who have gone through something similar, or who are a similar age and have gone through a number of transitions? So she was very pivotal in introducing me to other friends of hers that lived locally. And I was able to interview them. And they were the ones who created the composite characters. So to answer your question, it was a bit about, I feel like, yes, it was the universe giving me breadcrumbs and leading me along a path, and me saying, yeah, I wasn't ready yet, because I had to experience different transitions. And I also had to meet the right folks to make me realize, okay, now the time's ripe. I really need to write about this, because people need to understand. If people understand, Linda, they feel, as you know, that they're not alone in the world. And they know it. My intention and my why is that men, as well as other women, will not only understand each other better, but they'll also realize they're not alone and they have support.
Yeah, and I believe that's so critical. Me, we've been connected for a while. I believe in the power of storytelling, and that when women share their stories, it's like back, 1,000 years when everyone gathered around the fire. That's how they passed down their wisdom, their stories. So when I see books like this, that's what it reminds me of, a gathering of women, it just being done on the page, that share their truth. So I would love to learn a little bit more about the character Minerva. Like, who is she? Just that name is like sassy.
She's so fun. Yes. And she just came to me and she just flowed through me. Seriously. Minerva is playful and sensitive. She believes that life is an adventure to be lived to the fullest, and she lives her life according to that mantra. Minerva, as you may know, is the name of the most revered Greek goddess, Linda. And she is known and revered for her wisdom and her knowledge. And she's often depicted with her sacred creature, the owl. And curiously, my Minerva has an owl, and I didn't even realize that until I did some more research on Greek goddesses. So curious, right?
There's no accidents.
And in fact, a number of years ago, was on my yoga mat, and before a yoga class, I got a message, and an owl flew in and landed on my right shoulder. And I was given this message: I'm here to help guide you on the next leg of your journey. So I have that owl on the right side, on my right shoulder, and they have been there guiding me along my
That
journey
is
since that day.
beautiful. I believe we're always being guided and led, and our role is to stay open to the signs, to stay open and be willing to receive them and then take action on them. But what a sacred blessing that was.
It certainly was and is.
To this day, because as you know, that energy and that owl are always with you.
That's correct. Yes.
And Pamela, we're going to take our first break, and when we come back, let's dive into, because you mentioned the Art of Change framework. So I want to talk about that a little. I love the title, by the way. And I want to talk about that when we come back from our break.
Okay, thanks.
We'll be back in a moment, my friends. I'm with Pamela Thompson. You can learn more at pamela-thompson.com. We'll be right back.
Connecting you with the best of the conscious minds in the world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Inspiration for a Woman's Soul. Aspire Magazine, inspiring and supporting women on the path of self-discovery. Claim your free digital subscription today, which includes access to thousands of dollars of personal development bonus gifts from Team Inspiration partners. Claim your Aspire Magazine subscription today at subscribetoaspire.com.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free. AscendingHearts.com.
Consistently attract soulmate clients, begin showing up on brand, monetizing on your calling. Welcome all spiritual coaches, leaders, healers, light workers, and practitioners to a show that turns you on in your business and amplifies your magnetism. I'm host, catalyst, and spiritual business coach Rosalind Fung, and I'm here to journey with you into the juicy and help you discover where the real gaps are. Ignite your mindset and soul with strategies and systems as each episode takes you to the sweet spot that activates your soulgasmic business by tuning in on Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Mountain. Join me for your light language activation, and let's magnetize and monetize.
Your conscious lifestyle on steroids. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome back. You're listening to Inspired Conversations. I'm your host, Linda Joy, and with me today is Pamela Thompson, author of her second book, The Exploits of Minerva, Reflections of a 60-something Woman. So, Pamela, right before the break, you had mentioned in your conversation about the Art of Change framework. And I know that you created that some years ago. So what is it and how can it be used?
I love sharing this, actually. What is it and how can it be used? Well, it is a 5-step process that helps women and men navigate life transitions, ideally with ease, grace, and playfulness. And it really turns the idea of change on its head, because it's based on the metaphor life is a dance and underpinned by the belief that embracing change is a creative process that opens us up to new possibilities. So rather than fear change, the intention is to flip change on its head and see and know that and understand and truly believe that change is an opportunity to see the silver lining in something that may at the time not seem so. may seem fearful and not seem like a really great thing that's happened to you in your life. Because I don't know about you, Linda, but certainly for me, there's certain things that happened. And in the moment, I thought, really? And then if it was a relationship and it ended and I was really upset about it, really sad, then ultimately I met a man who was way better suited to me and really was the love of my life, who I live with now. And so this idea of having a framework that helps people embrace change rather than fear it, I thought was really important, because I've also seen the negative impact that resisting change has on our bodies, our minds, our relationships, our workplaces, and our bottom lines if we have our own businesses as well. Because as you know, when you're in an organization, you're in a relationship, if you're resisting change, often it doesn't bring out the best in you. It makes you feel angry and you want to reach out, and there's conflict, and it can create toxic environments in families and also in organizations. So I thought, okay, so how can I support others in the change process? So this is meant not only for individuals, but also you can use it in families, you can use it in organizations as managers or senior managers, because this 5-step framework helps you identify how you respond to change and why, and then gives you a tool that you can use to apply to personal and professional change processes. Would you like me to share?
I was just going to go, you have to tell us what the 5 steps are.
Shine the light, choose your dance, feel the rhythm and learn the steps, practice, 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 and consciously share your dance with the world.
That's beautiful. And I love how it all ties back to the title of your first book, right? Learning to Dance with Life, about the whole dance analogy. Is that where it was first shared?
No, in fact, it came to me, I'm going to say, at least probably 3 years after I launched that book in August 2015. And the Art of Change framework came to me when I was doing a bit of a rebrand, and I was working with a branding person. And initially, the Art of Change came out of it. Actually, it was after 2018, maybe 2019, because I had my new website. And then I thought, you know what? I've been working with transitions, and I actually then was very heavily influenced by a man called William Bridges. You may know him. He's an organizational theorist, and based on over 30 years of working with people in organizations, identified that regardless of the transition people go through, there's 3 distinct phases: an ending, a neutral zone, and a new beginning. And if they don't do the work associated with each of those phases, they often end up repeating the same patterns in their lives and remaining unhappy and unfulfilled. So anyway, and then the dance thing, it just flowed out of me. And I actually shared it with a mentor of mine initially, and he said, Pam, really integrate it into what you're doing, because I shared the phases, but I didn't have them kind of really well aligned to the dance metaphor. And then it just came to me, as these creative things do. And I thought, that's perfect. I can integrate what I know to be true based on my work with clients, and also some of William Bridges' work, and then modify it and tweak it. So that's what I did.
I love it. And they just really speak to me. I just love the words. I love the energy of each of the steps, right? The energy of the descriptive words that you use, because I feel that's how I process. So I think they're beautiful. And now you do speaking on it. You work for, what do you want to say, corporations? Do you go in and speak on this topic?
I haven't been speaking in corporations. My idea pre-COVID was to speak in corporations, but I haven't really marketed it that much. That said, I've been on a number of podcasts, and through my work with the group you mentioned at the outset, Female Wave of Change, I've been a keynote speaker at conferences they've done virtually. That is something, though, that is potentially my intention moving forward, because I am in transition now yet again. We teach what we need to learn, as they say. And so I'm opening up some space to do more creative work and to really get clear what my next step is on my path.
That's beautiful. And I love what you said about giving space. We have to give space to hear and not try to force from ego, right? Of what we should do. It's like everything I do for the last 17 years, all my brands are birthed through me. You know, I listen, I receive, I trust, and I birth. And so it sounds like you process that way also.
Yes, I try to. Every now and again, my left brain does get in the way. I will admit that. However, I do believe in, I guess I would say I call it creative living. That's the concept I introduced in my first book, and it's the conscious cultivation of improved health, happiness, fulfillment, and inner peace in your life. And the first key is listen to and trust in your body's wisdom. So again, I need to remind myself about that. However, yes, that's how a lot of my books have flowed through me, how my work, I used to have a creative healing center on the web, and then I flipped it to be creative living, and then my books as well. They flow to me and through me. And often I change it up partway through. Like originally I was going to write a memoir, and then I said, no, I'm going to write about Minerva. And then who knew, right?
Isn't it funny? Do you think part of it too is it felt too vulnerable to write a memoir? So you wrote this combination and created a character because it felt safer, even though it became out to be so powerful. Was that part of it in any way?
You know what? That may have been part of it, but I guess one of the things that I want to do is I want to have a positive impact in the world. And I've done a lot of stuff. You know, I mean, I've lived and worked in Afghanistan. I've managed projects in places like Pakistan and Nigeria. I've lived in the mountains of Northern Colombia, and I've done a lot of stuff. So sometimes when you write about that, people can't relate to you, you know, because the world is so different from a lot of people. So I think what I wanted to do, even though it wasn't conscious, was I knew that I wanted to impact and reach out to a number of women and also some men, right? Because it's relevant to men as well, but the focus is on women. I wanted it to be able to, in a story way, as you talked about storytelling, reach people. And if it was totally a memoir about all the stuff I'd done, I mean, memoirs, you don't tell everything, and there needs to be themes in them. It might have distanced some people. And I feel the way I've written it, it's more playful and it's more accessible than if I had written straight from my memoir. The other piece, as I think about it and going to my body about it, Linda, is I feel like there's another chapter. And I feel like maybe in the future, I will write a memoir and it'll include the next chapter.
Ooh, we'll be waiting, my friend. I'm curious. Yeah, it just feels like that's the natural organic next step. So I know you'll be led along the way.
Thank you.
So why don't we talk about, before our next break, like for those listening, what's the difference between a life change and a transition, and why does understanding this difference really matter?
Yeah, that's a great and important question. A life change is something situational and external, such as a separation agreement or a pink slip if you've lost your job. Whereas a life transition or a transition is something internal and psychological. So it's the internal psychological work that we do to reorient and readjust ourselves to the new external reality. If it's a divorce, if it's the loss of a job, whatever it is. And I would like to acknowledge William Bridges for this distinction, because he's the one who's written about this difference. And he also says that if you don't, and what I know to be true is that if you don't do the internal psychological work, which many people don't, they make the change and then they move on without doing the internal psychological work, and they end up repeating the same patterns and remaining unhappy and unfulfilled. For example, a woman or a man who marries 3, 4, or 5 times often marries someone who even looks like the previous partner, and then has the honeymoon phase, and then the same issues resurface in each relationship because they haven't taken the time between relationships to really find out who they are and what they want in life. So that's a very concrete example. So that's why this differentiation between a change and a transition is so crucial. And I use it in my framework because one of the things I talk about is I talk about that, and the structure I've integrated into my Art of Change framework is this idea of the work associated with each phase of a transition. So an ending, it's letting go. What do you have to let go of? Is it your status? Is your financial security? If it's a relationship or a job, whatever it is. And then I've added an identifying lessons learned. What did you learn from that job that you don't want to repeat in the next one? It could be you've gone after previous positions because of the job description, and you know it would advance you in your career. And you went after them for the money, but you didn't really, you got in and it wasn't a good organizational fit for you. So, and you also did it more based on the money and continuing momentum rather than really getting clear on your passions and what fired you up. So anyway, so this, and then the if I may, then the neutral zone, the work associated with that is getting clear on that relationship of your dreams, that career of your dreams, that life of your dreams, and identifying that vision for yourself. And the third phase, the new beginning, is when you take action toward what you envisioned in that second phase. So when you apply this framework that clearly talks about the transition that you're in, and in my framework, I say it's very important to only work on one transition at a time, because it gets very complicated. So really parse each one down and go through it and take action in your life. And yeah, so I expanded a bit here to illustrate, but the power though of that differentiation and why it is so important.
Well, I love it. And for me, I can really relate for the different transitions I went through in my life, especially the relationship story that you shared. And that's what my 20s and 30s was like. What the heck do I keep getting the same dude in a different skin suit? Right?
Yes.
And then I knew, I think, God, Nikki was 6. So that was 32 years ago. It was right before I met Dana. I chose to not even date. I went complete, like no dates, didn't matter, for 19 months. And it was the deepest dive into my spiritual self that I ever did. It was the most uncomfortable thing I ever did, to be alone, to look at why I felt I needed to be in a relationship, heal it so I could end the pattern, because I wanted to be a role model for her because she was 5.5, 6. And so I did that for 19 months. 22 months later, Dana walked in my life. We've been together 29 years. And I remember saying to him, Pamela, like 6 months into dating, I'm like, oh my God, I wasted so much time. We could have been together earlier. He goes, no, we couldn't have been, because the woman you were wasn't ready for a man like me. Because I was needy. You know what I mean? I was insecure.
Yes.
He goes, babe, all that inner work you did prepared you for this relationship. And
Wow.
yeah, he's a lot of wisdom, a lot of spiritual insight, very emotionally healthy. And my daughter adored him from the moment she met him, and they have such a sacred bond. Even though her biological dad's in her life, their bond is priceless to me. That couldn't have happened if I didn't do what you said, right? If I hadn't reviewed my pattern, the transitions of why I kept repeating things. So that was a great insight. We're going to take another break, and we'll be back in a moment. I'm with Pamela Thompson. Please visit her at pamela-thompson.com. We'll be back in a moment.
The best of the holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. OMTimes Radio. IOM-FM.
Are you struggling to grow your mission-driven business in a way that feeds your soul and fulfills your purpose? When you discover your unique human design and divine blueprint, you'll feel empowered in your business, aligned with your inner wisdom, and open to the flow of abundance and success. Nancy O'Keefe is a certified human design specialist and intuitive business coach, successfully coaching entrepreneurs for over 25 years. She is passionate about helping you understand your divine design and your personal formula for success. She knows what it takes after creating her own multi-7-figure firm. Nancy helps women peel back the layers of who they've been taught to be, to reveal who they truly are so they can build an abundant and sustainable business that feeds their soul. Schedule your complimentary call today at nancyo'keefecoaching.com.
More than 24 million Americans have an autoimmune disorder, and that number continues to grow. I'm Sharon Saylor, and I'm one of those 24 million. To put that number in perspective, cancer affects about 9 million and heart disease up to 22 million. That's why I've brought together top experts and those thriving regardless of their diagnosis to bring you the latest, most up-to-date information. Join me, Sharon Saylor, Friday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, for the Autoimmune Hour on Life Interrupted Radio to find out how to live your life uninterrupted.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Free your mind with OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
You're listening to Inspired Conversations. Thanks for joining me. I am with Pamela Thompson, the author of the recent international bestseller, The Exploits of Minerva, Reflections of a 60-something Woman. So thank you for everything that shared in that last segment. That really spoke to me, Pamela.
Oh, you're very welcome. I'm happy it did. And thanks for sharing your beautiful story. That was very vulnerable.
Well, thank you for creating that space. So I want to talk about, because there was something exciting that happened in March 2020. You were named Ambassador for Canada of Female Wave of Change, a global social movement. So tell us about the movement, your role, and why you're so passionate about it.
Well, Female Wave of Change, as you said, Linda, is a global social movement, and we're now in over 40 countries around the world. It was founded by a woman called Ingun Bol in the Netherlands about 6.5 years ago. And I met Ingun on LinkedIn in 2018, and we had a Zoom call afterwards and realized we had some crossover points and agreed to support each other on social media and keep connected. And then in 2019, I had a radio show called The Art of Change, where I interviewed inspiring women leaders and change makers from around the world. And I interviewed Ingun, so we got even closer. And at that time, I was astounded because she had shared with me initially that they were having a conference in the Netherlands, and that it was a conference based on women in leadership. And her vision, her experience had been as an engineer in corporate, that whenever she would be sent on leadership and management training, there would be nothing related to women specifically. And she felt there was a real gap and a real need there. And then she had then left corporate and became a consultant for about 15 years, did a lot of stuff internationally, and then came back to this idea in the Netherlands. So founded a foundation called Female Wave of Change, based on a conference that she was hosting in the Netherlands. And at that point, she only thought this was going to be for the Netherlands. She changed her profile on LinkedIn, Linda, and said, I'm founder of Female Wave of Change. And these women from all over the world got in touch with her and said, oh my goodness, this sounds awesome. How can we be part of it? And then within a year after, it had just started when I initially spoke with her. And then within a year and a bit after that, she was already in 20 countries. It organically grew to be this movement. So anyway, we believe that feminine leadership holds the key to creating a better world, a more conscious, equitable, just, sustainable, and peaceful one. And when I say feminine leadership, I mean qualities such as creativity, collaboration, inclusiveness, emotional intelligence, compassion, qualities, Linda, that we all know are typically associated with the feminine. That said, men can have them as well. Dana, probably your partner, likely has many of them, if not all of them, and they can also learn them. And so part of what we do is we have a Women Leading in Change. It's a leadership development program that's virtual. We do it about every quarter. And I'm honored to be faculty on that and do the module on authentic feminine leadership, the training. And it's quite unique because we have faculty from all over the world teaching it, and we have students from all over the world. So that's something that we do. The other thing is we have 5 pillar areas that we work on in economy, environment, education, health, and humanity. And we create or co-create projects, initiatives, and events in those 5 areas. So for me, I really, part of my role as ambassador for Canada is to grow that movement in Canada. And I was interviewed and offered that position. And it took me a while to make a decision, but then I thought, I feel so aligned in terms of the mission, vision, and values. I want to do this. And that's one of the things I hadn't yet done, Linda. I chaired boards, but I had never, and co-chaired them, but I had never started a nonprofit from the ground up. So now I have. I created a national member-based nonprofit called Female Wave of Change Canada. And we have monthly gatherings virtually with featured guests. And I or one of my board members co-create each event with the featured guest. And then we have a conversation, and then we open it up during the conversation to people who are there. And we have breakouts, and we talk about how people are creating ripples of change in their own world, and also dive deeper into the conversation. So I get to use a lot of the skills that I've developed throughout my career doing the variety of things that I've done, and I get to also live my passion. And the other piece is the legacy piece. Ingun believes, and she has grandchildren. So do I. I'm blessed to have 4 grandchildren, 3 granddaughters and 1 grandson, ages 5, 7, and 8. 2 are 5, 1 7, and 1 8. And I want to leave a legacy for them. And Ingun as well has 4 grandchildren now. And her thought when she originally created this movement was she was worried about the planet and the way the conflict in the world. And likewise, I am too. And she wanted to create something that would have a lasting positive legacy for 7 generations back, like the Iroquois say, and 7 generations forward. So there's a lot of reasons why I believe you can feel the passion that I have around it. And Ingun really, I love being creative and kind of doing my own thing. And Ingun does not tell people how to run their organizations. She said, you know, part of the commitment that I signed was, the agreement I signed was to create a legal entity. So what we're doing in Canada is quite different from other countries. And I'm pleased that I've been able to do, with the support of my board, what we've done so far.
I can hear your passion, Pamela. So first off, congratulations on being named the Ambassador for Canada of Female Wave of Change. And I could feel your passion and energy of why you're doing this. Like, as I'm sure all our listeners could too, you could just feel your belief in the legacy that's going to be left behind. And think for a moment, all the work she did in the ripple effect that has occurred since that moment that she had that vision. That's what you're doing, right? It's like your stake, putting your stake in the ground to say, this is going to be my legacy, along with the personal work you're doing in the world. So my question is, how does the Female Wave of Change Canada work that you're doing link back to your work as a consultant and coach? So you're still doing that, right?
Yes, and I should say that since COVID and since I launched this nonprofit with these monthly, we had our first monthly true gathering in March of 2021. So it's been pretty intense. So I haven't been able to work on my own business that much. But what I have done is I have written my second book, which I launched in December. And I am starting, and I did design a course called Reinvent Yourself for women midlife and beyond, but it's on the back burner. So in terms of my own work, I certainly do speak a fair bit, and I do speak, I love being interviewed on podcasts such as yours, Linda, to get the message out about different things that I'm doing and we're doing in the world. The other thing is this idea of leaving a legacy and modeling. What I know to be true, Linda, is if we model in our day-to-day interactions with others the qualities of a feminine leader, it then ripples out to others, if you talked about the ripple. So if I see a homeless person on the street and I chat with them and I say hi, I don't just sort of go by and pretend they're not there. That's just one thing. If I connect with people from a diversity of cultures, for example, because I've lived and worked in Afghanistan, and since the Taliban took over, there were some people that I knew. One man was targeted by the Taliban, and I helped he and his family. I raised money for he and his family to get out of, to get from the country to Pakistan. So then, because he was approved by the Canadian government to emigrate to Canada, but he couldn't get out of Afghanistan. So I guess my work sort of melds with my life, if you know what I'm saying. And so now he's resettled in the Lower Mainland, in the Vancouver area. Likewise, there are some other women that I know, and two of them I worked very closely with. And one of them ended up working for the Canadian Embassy in Kabul. And she and two of her single sisters have resettled as refugees in the eastern part of Canada. And I've been in touch with them, and they actually are going to have been supportive to me as well. Friends of mine helped them resettle, and because I'm not there anymore. But what's happened is a new idea from my next book has resurfaced, which is part of my work, and it's a historical fiction novel with Afghanistan as the backdrop. So I've asked this one woman who was on my strategic planning team, because in Afghanistan, Linda, I used to be a management and global health consultant, and I worked with the Ministry of Health to help them develop their first strategic plan, and built the capacity of internal teams to do strategic and operational planning. So anyway, one of these women was on my team, and I asked her, and she's resettled in Ottawa, I asked her if she knew of any history books, because I wanted to learn more deeply about the history of Afghanistan. And she was able to identify and find through friends 5 English books on the history of Afghanistan from different perspectives. And then my intention is to interview she, her sisters, and other men and women that I know, both in Canada now who have resettled, and ones that are still in Afghanistan, and ask about their experience during different times of when they were growing up, pre-first Taliban, pre-Russian invasion, pre-sec, all these things, so that I can really get a sense of what it was like, and then create characters that are very real. Because again, it's about promoting, my bigger mission is to promote peace and understanding in the world. Because if we're curious and we understand where people are coming from, then we won't, my belief is we won't have conflict. Because if you look at people through the lens of understanding and curiosity, it's a different energy. It's a different energy, right? So my intention is in this book to help people through story to understand that Muslim people are not all the same. Muslim men are not all the same. Do you know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
They're not.
And it sounds like I can tell you're so passionate about it. And I know this one's going to unfold with ease and grace like Minerva did, because you're leading with intention. We're going to take our final break, and when we come back, we will continue our conversation for the last segment. And I'll be back in a moment. Please visit Pamela at Pamela-Thompson.com. Grab a copy of the Exploits of Minerva and check out everything else she is up to. We'll be back in a moment, my friends.
The best of the holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Are you feeling called to clear your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual blockages? That's your soul and environment speaking to you and asking you to uncover all the clutter that is preventing you from living the life you envision. Felicia Messina DeHady, soul coaching master practitioner and trainer and teacher of advanced interior alignment and medicine wheel feng shui, supports her international clientele by creating inner and outer transformation in their environments and their lives by combining elements from her extensive training, experience, and intuition. Felicia is a master intuitive coach, certified by Colette Baron Reed, and has served as a master mentor for Denise Lin's Elemental Space Clearing certification course, as well as her Ultimate Clutter Clearing. Explore her offerings, including certification courses in Feng Shui, space clearing, soul coaching, and Reiki at FeliciaDeHady.com.
Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
This is Kathy Beal, host of Celestial Compass, featuring astrology you can use. Celestial Compass points you to what's going on in the sky and what you can do with it down here on Earth. We also explore fun, effective, and cosmic tools for navigating this adventure we call life. Join me the first and third Monday of the month at 5 p.m. Eastern Time for Celestial Compass. It's enlightening, entertaining, and empowering.
The United States has the highest rate of incarceration in the world. At the Equal Justice Initiative, we believe mass incarceration has to end. There is this presumption of dangerousness and guilt that gets assigned to Black and brown people. We have to confront our history of racial injustice and commit to a new era of truth. There's something better waiting for us, something that feels more like freedom. Truth can inspire change. Please learn more at eji.org.
Your conscious lifestyle on steroids. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome back. You're listening to Inspired Conversation. I'm your host, Linda Joy, and thank you for joining me for today's inspiring conversation with Pamela Thompson. Pamela, in the last segment, you were talking about the vision for your book, and I can hear your passion. And what I love about your journey in your life is everything in your life, even though it was at times it was hard, has led you exactly to where you're meant to be now. And I believe there are no accidents. Like, I look back at my life, and I think it was something you said in the first segment, the things we go through, those transitions, if you do the inner work, there's such a shift in you. When I look back, those transitions led me to who I am today. But if I hadn't done the inner work to heal, I wouldn't be able to be fully present in my own life now to make a ripple of transformation. So it's almost like I can see your life, all these experiences you've had. I can tell you've done the inner work because look what you're doing now.
Well, thank you, Linda. And that is certainly great insight. It's true. Like, we wouldn't be the people that we are today if we hadn't done the work and gone through the transitions we've been gifted with. I'm going to say that, gifted with.
Yeah, I no longer look back. I mean, I was a welfare mom, high school dropout, runaway. I see them all now. Those were never who I was. They were experiences I had who made me who I am today. But for the first 30 years, I carried the shame of the labels. Does that make sense? Because I didn't do the inner work to heal.
Totally.
To say, oh, Lynn, they were never who you are. They were experiences you had, and you took on the label of them. And once I released the label and then just took the gems out of the experiences, I think is what fuels me today to do the work I do in the world to support women and give women a voice. So I am super excited. What year can we expect that new book, Pamela?
Oh, I don't want to put pressure on myself. I'm going to take much of this summer off.
I'm hearing 2024, late 2024.
Well, once you get a publisher, though, the publication process takes a while. My intention would be that it would be finished in 2024. It may not be released until 2025 or launched till 2025.
Well, we will hold that vision with you. And I invite everyone, make sure you follow her on all the social media channels. Again, it's Pamela-Thompson.com. So in our last few minutes, Pamela, what is something that you would like women who are in the midst right now of a life transition, what would you like them to know?
Take some time to really go inside and listen to your body and ask it what you need to receive. So listen to and trust in your body's wisdom. And I invite you to try on and try out my 5-step Art of Change framework, which you can get on my homepage of the website that Linda's been mentioning, because I know for sure that it will help you navigate the life transition. Yes, and believe that and know that that embracing change is truly a creative process that opens you up to new possibilities, and trust in the universe to provide you with what you need.
I love that. You speak my language, because for me, the big thing of navigating everything I've gone through, especially the last few years, as you know, Dana went through 2 diagnoses and 2 brain surgeries, and then I landed up with emergency surgery. So there's a lot of life transitions, my friend. And we went through it navigating by trusting. So I love that you added the trusting that the divine will always bring you what you need. That's how we got through those transitional times, through those, life shifts. So was trust something that came natural to you, or was it like a muscle that you had to build to be able to trust in the divine?
I would say it was a muscle that I built. Initially, when in my career, like I've been an academic and I've done a number of things. I've been as a consultant, as I mentioned, and project manager and stuff. I was very left brain, and it wasn't, and my mother was very, very creative. And I realized that around age 13, I decided I felt my mother was a doormat, and that I didn't respect the creative side of her at that point in my life. And I took on the masculine persona of my father, who was powerful in making money and an entrepreneur as well as a teacher. And so I really feel that it took a while for me to then flip and realize that the creative side was really worth developing and valuing. And also I really started doing personal growth work, I'm going to say in the early 90s. And so so we're talking about my 40s, right? That I started to really probably trust and really tap into my intuition and develop and trust further. So, 4 decades before I really, really did. And yet on reflection, I know that I've always been highly intuitive as a child. Like I knew at about age 4 that I was going to travel around the world and be of service in some way. I knew it in my bones. I can remember the moment when I felt it.
So it just got smothered. The intuitive nature of your childlike spirit just got smothered because of the other persona. And I think so many of us can relate to that. So mine was waking up like 30 years ago. It's the same thing. I had to build my trust muscles. I had to keep taking baby steps, follow, I call them spiritual breadcrumbs like you do. I had to follow them in trust. And sometimes it was like little baby steps. And now I live my entire life, run my businesses with just receive the idea, trust it, and birth it. And it's such a peaceful, fun, creative place to be than micromanaging the divine, which I really tried to do that for many years. It doesn't work. But the ego part of us, that part, like I want what I want when I want it. The masculine energy really thought it could micromanage. And once I let go, such a healing began. So much wisdom, my friend, in this conversation and the work that you're doing in the world. And is the best place for them to also find out about the Female Wave of Change Canada. Is that on the same website, Pamela-Thompson.com, or do you have your own website separate?
We do have our own website, and thanks for asking. It's fwoccanada.com. fwoccanada.com.
I love that. And I want to invite everybody to go to fwoccanada.com, learn more about the Female Wave of Change, the global social movement. I invite you to visit Pamela-Thompson.com to learn about her books, including her previous book, Learning to Dance with Life, a guide for high achieving women. And Pamela, thank you for joining me today for the work that you're doing in the world. I'm so glad that we got a chance to circle up today.
Well, thank you so much, Linda. I've really enjoyed the opportunity and our conversation. I always learn so much from my interactions with you. So thank you for the work you do in the world.
Well, we're both following our bliss, right? And I just feel I'm grateful to be able to give women like you a platform. That's why I do what I do. It's like if I've been given this platform, let me elevate the voices of other women doing magical work in the world. So thank you again, Pamela. And until next time, my friends, choose love, choose joy, choose happiness. Blessings, everyone.
Thanks for listening to Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy. Join our sacred space every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern and meet leading female visionaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. Inspired Conversations with Linda Joy is a soulful venue where guests share the obstacles they've overcome, along with wisdom and lessons learned on their personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic and soulful living.